Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you're watching my walkthrough for Chrono Trigger for Nintendo DS. The first third of this video is covering the last little bit of a vanished princess, otherwise titled The Queen is Gone in older versions of the game, where we're going to reacquire Marle and go back through the gate in Truce Canyon to return to 1000 AD, and then we just need to bring Marle back home to the castle. So that's what this whole video is going to be all about. So the last two-thirds of this video is going to be the chapter titled Homecoming, otherwise titled We're Back in older versions of the game. These are the only two chapters in the entire game that have different titles between the different editions of the game, which is a little bit confusing, I know, but there you have it, though. This video basically consists of a whole bunch of cutscenes and reading lots of dialogue. Now, the dialogue here is super enjoyable. It's very, very good writing. This game has lots of good writing for all of it, and the developments that happen between the characters are very interesting, and I would recommend you hang around to just kind of know what's even happening. But this is not required to watch this, so if you want to just kind of skip ahead to the next video, you can totally do that. As a comment, so I don't really have too much to say during this. We're just like enjoying a lot of cutscenes and stuff, basically. And the music in this video is awesome, by the way, for this chapter. But I will say I do have a lot of things to share once we get to the trial, so just as a comment. So if you want to skip ahead and skip to the next video, go for it, and then we'll continue on with the actual gameplay. But if you want to stick around, then in particular for the trial, I have a bunch of things to share with you. So a couple interesting things that happened in the last little bit is Luca warmed up to Frog, so that's all great. Apparently Frog and the Queen are friends of some sort, and she wanted him to stay, but he insisted on leaving, so we don't really know what's going on with him, and we'll meet up with him much later in the game. And then as well, the king said that he's now curious whatever happened with the woman who was mistaken for Queen Leene, whatever happened with her, and it was pretty obvious that she wasn't the right person. And then meanwhile, the Chancellor says that because this whole fiasco happened, he wants to institute a more severe criminal punishment system, so just bear that in mind. So having set history straight once more, you want to go back upstairs to the Queen's chambers and reunite with Marle once again. Alright, so with Marle successfully reacquired and no longer disintegrated into nothingness, we are finally ready to return back to 1000 AD. So to do so, you just want to go ahead and go downstairs. Now, as far as remaining things you can do here in Guardia Castle, some of the people have some various dialogue that's kind of fun. I actually did not think to check the kitchens. Everywhere else is pretty fun. In particular, the throne room, there's some interesting dialogue between her and Queen Leene. As far as other remaining things you could do here in Guardia Castle before we leave, there is a chest up in the Chancellor's Tower, which is the stairs just to our left, and if you go up there, then in his room there's a chest that has the bronze armor, otherwise known as the bronze mail in the non-remake editions of this game. Anyways, the bronze armor has a very high defense stat, and I did get it before we ever went to Minoria Cathedral. If you have not done that yet, you should totally do that right now, because that is a very nice thing for Crono to have. Something else you definitely want to do before we leave, which might seem kind of odd, is we need to heal because we are still damaged from fighting the boss. I know a lot of modern games will heal you automatically after boss battles, but this game does not, so you want to go downstairs and heal for free real quick. One other quick note about that too is you'll notice that Marle is slightly hurt as well as missing some MP, but I haven't even been using her, and I don't even have any abilities for her that cost MP, so why is it down? And the reason for this is because she still has the values that I left her with when I abandoned her last time. And that is because she has leveled, actually. So they've leveled her to get her up to level 4, so she's a little bit closer to matching our other characters. So that's what the game does defaultly. Something to note about that, though, is basically she earned XP defaultly, but she did not earn any TP, which is experience towards learning tech abilities. So she actually has some abilities that she has available to her that I don't currently have access to, so it might be smart to kill some enemies here in Guardia Forest and in Truce Canyon so that you can level her up a little bit to make this next little part of the game a little bit easier, because Marle is one of our primary healers. However, for me, I am going to be avoiding as much combat as possible, so unfortunately I'm not going to be having Marle learn the heal ability for a little while because she still has quite a bit of TP to earn. So, that being said, I'm only going to be doing the absolutely mandatory required fights, such as this one in Truce Canyon. The biggest threat here is this new enemy here called a Fiendalo, and otherwise in the old Super Nintendo version it is called a Poli, which is actually a play off of the earlier version of this enemy that was green was called a Roly. This one's called a Poli. Ha ha ha, Roly-Poly. It's a joke. Anyways, so they have a lot of punny names for a lot of the enemies in this game. Anyways, these guys have a very high, has a whopping 99 health, and has a very high physical defense stat. However, it is very weak to magic, so you definitely want to use fire to kill it if you can. And if you want to go overkill just to make absolutely sure that you kill it, you can go ahead and use a fire whirl, which is what I did in this video. So next, swing on over to the right, and you'll find a gate here, and then Luca explains that we can now use the gate key, an invention that she made that allows us to use gates and go back and forth through time whenever we want, which is awesome. This particular gate leads here to in Truce Canyon in 600 AD, and the other end is in Millennial Fair in 1000 AD. So you can go back and forth between these two time periods whenever you want. So that's all great. So we're going to go to 1000 AD now. If you ever want to come back, you just return to Millennial Fair and go to the gate that is right next to Luca's teleporter. Now, if you've been following along with me, there's no particular reason to do that, though, because I have collected all the goodies that we can get here for now. We will be returning here eventually, but not for a little while. So there is one other obscure strategy you could do right now. We're about to lose access to Marle again, and so we'll only have just Crono and Luca in just a little bit. So because of that, something you could do, potentially, is if you want, you could swap out Marle's accessory for, like, the sight scope, which we don't care about, because then you could give the ribbon that she's currently wearing, which gives +2 to accuracy/hit, and give that to Luca to increase Luca's physical damage. That is one potential option. You'd have to do it in the next little bit while you still have access to Marle if you want to get access to her accessory. Now, I do think that's actually just a bad strategy. I just think it's worth mentioning, though, just because it's kind of cool. But Luca is definitely a spellcaster. Her physical damage is garbage, so increasing her physical damage doesn't really help that much. I would recommend the speed belt that I currently have on her is a way better item and is much better suited to her playstyle. Hooray for obscure strategies that nobody cares about. Yay! Welcome to the walkthrough, guys. We have returned to 1000 AD at long last. Now at this point, Luca will run off to go research the gates a little bit, and she instructs us to escort Marle back home to Guardia Castle. So that is our next objective. That's actually all we have to do. At this point, the chapter title changes, actually, so if you go find a save point and save, you will then see that the chapter title has changed to Homecoming, otherwise titled We're Back in the older versions of the game. This is actually the shortest chapter title in the entire game, because it's literally just here in Leene Square until you get to Hyrule Castle. I do Zelda walkthroughs. Until you get to Guardia Castle. It's just bound to happen, guys. This is who I am. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is the fact that this chapter is the shortest one in the entire game. It covers, like, literally 40 seconds, a minute. It's like nothing. Like, so a lot of players probably don't even know that this chapter title exists. Now, as far as other things we can do here real quick in 1000 AD, you can go shopping and stuff. I don't think most of those slots are going to get replaced here very shortly. In Guardia Forest to the bottom right, there is, just to the right, there is a strength capsule that I got at the very beginning of the game. So you should totally grab that if you have not done it yet. Otherwise, just avoid the enemies along the way. If you follow the path that I'm doing on screen, you shouldn't have any enemy encounters at all. Again, I'm trying to keep our XP as low as possible to get a secret later on. So welcome to the trial. The music here is so awesome, by the way. I love this song. But anyway, the things that happen here in the trial is pretty much predetermined based on your previous actions. However, there is some things that you need to know in order to respond properly to the questions. So that's what I'm going to be guiding you on for this section. Basically, what it boils down to is that you always have to tell the truth throughout the trial for the best outcome. So regardless of what your intentions were, you always need to tell the truth. And that what the truth is will kind of depend, because what they're quizzing you on is not maybe necessarily what you expected. So the first question that the Chancellor asks you is who initiated contact, and the answer will always be that you are the one responsible. And the reason is because Marle works exactly just like enemy encounters. If you're holding still, she'll like patrol right through you kind of thing. And regardless of her speed, I know she's running around super fast. If you're just walking, whatever, if you walk into her, it initiates combat, basically just like enemies do. So that is why you are the one responsible. I still find that a little bit weird, though. It's kind of like regardless of your speed, if you're just walking, strolling, and she's like running like crazy, and they consider that you're like at fault for this. So next they will call two different witnesses to the stand who will either testify for you or against you. The first person is the old man who had the lunch that was on the table that you can use to heal next to the Gato battle. So you can heal there over and over again. However, the downside to that is then that the old man will testify against you in the trial. So I did not do that in this walkthrough as a result. So in the particular recordings I did show a recording of me doing that, but I didn't do that in this exact playthrough, so that witness will not be here. Meanwhile, the next witness is a little girl who was missing her cat. Now, if you speak with a little girl but you don't bring her cat back, she will then testify against you right now. But if you instead either saved her cat and brought it back to her, then she will say you're a nice person. If you didn't talk to her or the cat at all and completely ignored them and never interacted with them whatsoever, then she will just not be here, and then that gives you the verdict of not guilty. So for the best outcome, don't eat the old man's lunch, and then either completely ignore the girl and the cat and don't talk to them at all, or bring the cat back to the girl. So the next thing the Chancellor accuses you of is greed, because Marle has a very expensive pendant. So the ways that this can go wrong is if you picked up the pendant before you spoke with Marle, which is actually kind of misleading because the pendant sparkles on the ground like it just is begging for you to explore it, you know? But so if you picked it up before you spoke with her, that's bad. Or if you tried to sell the pendant, is bad too. So if you did either one of those things or both, then admit to greed being one of your motivation factors. And if you didn't do either one of those things, and so you spoke to with Marle before you picked up the pendant and you never tried to sell her pendant, then go ahead and say that you were not motivated by that at all, and then that's fine. But yes, if you did one of those things, make sure you admit to it. Always tell the truth during the trial. The only other factor that I didn't have time to talk about is they quickly brush over the fact that they were accusing me of kidnapping for a moment, but then they just kind of brushed over it and you didn't really see that dialogue. But if you walked away from Marle while she was picking out candy, then that section is a little bit more expanded. So that's one of the only other things there that is different from my current gameplay that you're seeing right now. Because I stood next to Marle the entire time while she was picking out candy, they aren't going to accuse me of that. I'm assuming the reason is just because it makes it sound like you are just leading her around and you don't actually care about her feelings and stuff, is I assume the reason. It just makes it sound like you're only interested in taking her somewhere, and that makes it seem like you were trying to kidnap her. Anyway, so that's the only other thing that's different. Now, depending on the number of jurors that vote not guilty, you will then reach a certain number of items once we reach the jail. So that's why you want to have all the good stuff. Now, if you want to be totally evil, you totally can. Just do the opposite of all the things that are listed on the right side of the screen. So if you do all the good things, you will end up with 6 ethers once we arrive in our jail cell. Now, regardless of what the verdict is here in the court, the Chancellor will override it here in a little bit because he's a turd, as you will quickly find out. If you're looking for more direct assistance on the exact things you want to do during the Millennial Fair so that you get the best outcome for the trial, then refer to the first video of this walkthrough where I walk you through that very in-depth. So next we just have some cutscenes, and I'll just remain silent for this, but I would encourage you to stick around and read this dialogue because it is enjoyable. That's actually the end of this video. As I said, this video is basically just all cutscenes, is basically all it is. So we'll continue on with getting into the meat of the gameplay here in the next video in the prison. Woo! I actually am being serious about that because it is one of the cooler areas of the game in my opinion. It's really fun. It's just awesome. But yeah, so that's actually the end of this video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to throw a like on it, subscribe, etc. Check out my other playlists for more content just like this. Remember to stay awesome, have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.